We may be moments away from a major international flashpoint because the situation between the United States and Venezuela has gone from tense to volatile to now potentially explosive, literally. President Trump has declared the entire airspace over Venezuela closed in a dramatic warning this morning which hints at imminent military action. On Truth Social, he wrote, "To all airlines, pilots, drug dealers and human traffickers, consider the airspace above surrounding Venezuela closed in its entirety." Now, legally, Washington can't close another country's skies, but when the Commander-in-Chief uses language like that, I guess it's not diplomacy, it's a warning shot, which has been listened to. And it's happening at the same time the United States has moved its largest aircraft carrier, the USS Gerald Ford, plus 15,000 troops to within striking distance of Caracas, the capital, of course, of Venezuela. The move is the biggest US deployment to the region in 36 years. And add to that, if it wasn't enough, B-52 bombers, fighter jets, surveillance aircraft, drones, all of which have been running drills off the Venezuelan coast in recent months. Tonight, the Federal Aviation Authority this side of the pond has also warned airlines of heightened military activity in the area. President Trump had already warned that operations to stop Venezuelan drug trafficking by land, quote unquote, would begin very soon. That warning came on Thursday. And tonight it seems like that could happen at any minute now because US forces have already launched 21 strikes on boats they say carried drugs all across the Caribbean Sea destined for America. 80 people have been blown into red mist. The White House has also designated the president and dictator of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro, as a narco-terrorist and issued an arrest warrant for his capture, plus a $50 million bounty. Venezuela, meanwhile, they deny all the claims, of course, hitting out at America and President Trump as fiction.
Today, the Department of Justice and State Department are announcing a historic $50 million reward for information leading to the arrest of Nicolas Maduro. Maduro uses foreign terrorist organizations like TDA, Sinaloa, and Cartel of the Suns to bring deadly drugs and violence into our country.
Elsewhere, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth in a post on X claims the US have, quote, only just begun to kill narco-terrorists. That's despite 80 of them being blown into smithereens. And the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, has claimed Maduro, quote, is not the president of Venezuela, adding that his government was not legitimate. Tonight, we need to realise this. You do not move this level of firepower into position unless you're preparing for something or ready to respond to something imminently.
There's nothing more important than keeping your money and your identity safe online. And with so many VPN options available, choosing the right one can be pretty daunting. But this video's sponsor, ExpressVPN, is making the choice easier for GB News viewers. ExpressVPN is offering up to 73% off, plus 4 extra months free. That's top-level security from just £2.49 a month, and you're covered by their 30-day money-back guarantee. So just click the link in this video's description or scan the QR code now. Remember, when you're online, you are often sharing personal data, so hackers can steal your information, your passwords, your photos, and your bank details in just seconds. But ExpressVPN encrypts your connection, making it virtually impossible for hackers to access your personal information. So why choose ExpressVPN? Well, it couldn't be easier to use. With just one click, you are protected. And ExpressVPN uses military-grade AES 256 encryption, which is the same standard trusted by the US government to guard their classified information. With their new tiered plans, you can protect up to 14 devices at once and manage passwords securely. Live chat support is available 24/7, and it typically connects you in under a minute with a real person. Click the link in this video's description or scan the QR code to get up to 73% off ExpressVPN plus 4 extra months free. Start protecting yourself today with ExpressVPN.
With me now is the former spokesperson for Barack Obama, Federico de Jesus. Federico, good evening. Thank you for your company. What's your take on this? Are we moments away from a US land invasion of Venezuela, Federico?
Nice to see you, Ben. We don't know what Nicolas Maduro, the Venezuelan dictator, spoke with Trump about this week. That was leaked. It has been my theory from sources that I speak to that this is a psychological campaign as much as a military campaign to try to get Maduro ousted either by traitors in his midst in the regime or trying to entice him to leave. Some have speculated Turkey might be that country. But reality is that we're going to face a moment where either he leaves or the U.S. starts to bomb. And frankly, there's so many terrorist organizations out there. There's so many narco states out there. Why Venezuela? Is it the oil? Is it to distract from the Epstein files? These extrajudicial killings have led your country, the UK, to stop cooperating on some intelligence sharing on this issue. So Americans are really not having a debate about what this is all about, and the president really hasn't said what he wants to do.
Yeah, I think the proven oil reserves in Venezuela on its east coast are the largest in the world, totaling 300 billion barrels. Now, look, I'm not a crude oil expert by any means, but I was doing a little bit of research today, as you'd hopefully expect, and there is a massive cache of oil there. It's not as easy as other sites, say, for example, in the Middle East, to extract because it needs a bit more of a lengthy process. But, I mean, the US, let's say they're killing two birds in one stone, getting rid of Maduro, dealing with the narco drug problem, and, Brucey bonus, you've got loads of oil there as well. I guess it's not out of the realms of possibility, no?
Well, it's obvious that the US right now is interested in regime change. If there is a land invasion, having an Iraq in Latin America would not necessarily be in the best interest of the United States, but the chaos regionally that would sow could be in the best interest of Russia and China, even though they have a presence in Venezuela. And in terms of the oil, Maduro was already letting Chevron and other U.S. companies into the oil business there and made some entreaties, obviously, to stay in power that the U.S. rejected. So again, that question begs, there are countries, even in the region, with a lot more production of illegal drugs. Mexico, for example, and they also have oil, right? So what is it about Venezuela? Is it political because of Florida? Is it to distract from Epstein? Or is there some intelligence that the U.S. is obviously not sharing? I don't think that the president has made the case to the American people or the world, frankly, that this is a necessary military intervention. And the last point is that Trump, authorized covert operations by the CIA, which I understood that they were trying to plot a coup like the U.S. used to do in the old days in the 20th century. All of that is on the table, but again, the hour is near for something to come to a head. Either Maduro leaves or the U.S. will obviously start to bomb. And what the scope of that is, whether it's limited like in Iran or whether it's actually like a U.S. Invasion of Iraq style in Latin America, will be told when we see it on GB News.
Okay, I'm joined by my panel here in DC, the former aide to Margaret Thatcher, Niall Gardner, and political commentator Hilary Fordwich. Good evening to you both. Thank you for your company. Niall, of course, Maggie infamously led us to victory in the Falklands. What would your advice be to the United States tonight? And what do you think the intention here is? Of course, we're told by Hegseth and the White House and the intelligence agencies that it's about narco drug trafficking, which it may well be on the surface. But is there an additional reason here to go into Venezuela? The oil?
Well, it's great to be here on the show tonight, Ben. And I think that President Trump is absolutely right to be raising the stakes here, to be raising the pressure on Maduro, who is an absolute monster. And the Maduro regime is responsible for the deaths of tens of thousands of Americans every year. Let's not forget that. And the U.S. has every right to strike against this regime, to save American lives. I'm with the president 100% on this. And this, at the end of the day, is about taking on the drug cartels, dealing with, in my view, a barbaric regime that is actively killing American people. Yeah. And so President Trump has every right to use military force against the Maduro regime and against the drug cartels which it controls, because ultimately this will be saving large numbers of American lives, and that's the president's job at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think the number quoted from the White House was something like 300,000 lives saved from drug deaths each year.
Well, yes, and then look at the fact that overall the amount of deaths, I'm exactly with Niall on this, the amount of deaths are more than every American that's died in every war that the US has been in. So I think that's a ghastly number. And also, don't forget, it's not just deaths, it's deaths for profit, because where's that money going to? And we know Maduro is obviously a huge beneficiary of this, which is why he's gone missing. However, what I do understand is that President Trump was on the phone with him last week. I don't know what was that conversation, but they were on the phone last week, which to me is somewhat helpful. I do think one other issue, though, is that President Trump has said there will be a land invasion. We will be using troops if we don't see any results soon, which is going to escalate.
There is a UK link link to this panel, and Federico, if you're still there on the line, there is a UK link because some months ago the British, our dear country, our intelligence agency, said that they'd stopped sharing intelligence with the United States to do with narco traffickers in the Caribbean Sea. I think the reason was because of the US being accused of not adhering to international law, international order, no due process, just picking out narco boats in the Caribbean, careering across the water and just blowing them up, which wasn't to sort of Labour government's taste. But
an absolute disgrace, I think, by the Labour government.
Yes.
Well, Marco Rubio tonight has said in a video, where is it, quote unquote, he's basically told Europe to get their own house in order, and says that this is a problem in our own hemisphere, nothing to do with Europe, and don't come to us at a time when you're begging for Tomahawk missiles, arms for Ukraine, you want the United States to back you up militarily, and then at the same time stitch us up by not allowing us to have your intelligence in the Caribbean Sea.
Exactly, and I think that the response by the British Labour government is absolutely appalling and abhorrent. This is a very left-wing socialist government in power in the UK, and they're knifing the United States in the back instead of offering full support for the United States. So I think it's in Britain's interest as well that we see these narco-terrorists being taken out. But such is the I think the low level of the Keir Starmer government, frankly, and its policies, that they're siding with Maduro over President Trump, and this is absolutely disgraceful. Actually.
Well, I guess they deny Hillary their siding, but their problem is international law.
Right, and what I've always said is when the US has always been obviously a major funder of NATO, provided for the security of Europe, and is wanted obviously in Ukraine, what I've always said, could you imagine saying to the British taxpayer, the Belgian taxpayer, the Dutch taxpayer, can you imagine saying to them, by the way, we want your funds to actually protect the US via the southern border? The answer from them would have been, what? No, and now we're actually seeing that for all the years that the US has actually funded NATO, look what's happened.
Okay, Federico, last word to you. I just want to read you this quote from Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State. He said, I don't think the European Union gets to determine what international law is, and what they certainly don't get to determine is how the United States defends its national security. The United States is under attack from organised criminal narco-terrorists in our own hemisphere, and the President is responding in the defence of our country. That's a direct barb, Federico, to the European Union, the UK as well. The US just acting in your own interests. You're setting the example. To hell with the EU, to hell with the UK, Federico.
Well, look, these are extrajudicial killings, and Europe and the UK do have a right to share or not share intelligence with the United States. But there's a level of hypocrisy because today Donald Trump announced that he would pardon the former president of Honduras who was convicted in the United States of narco trafficking. So this level of hypocrisy leads again to the question, why is the United States doing this? There are a lot worse regimes. Maduro's a dictator, but why Venezuela? Why now? I think that there's a lot of questions that Donald Trump hasn't answered to the American people.
All right, Federico, thank you for your company. Nice to see you again. Hopefully see you in the studio fairly shortly. And panel, thank you very much. We'll be back in just a sec.